The message from the skies is of war, even if the talk is of peace. Leaflets dropped by drone over northern Gaza told residents to flee for their lives, warning the battle against Hamas is decisive and will not stop until it's defeated. That battle is ongoing as Hamas decides whether to accept proposals for peace or reject them and accept the consequences. Without question, that would mean more of this, and without restraint. Many in Gaza would say that was already the case.
All of the Arab countries are signed up, the Muslim countries are all signed up, Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas, and Hamas is either going to be doing it or not, and if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
The bonhomie of yesterday's announcement belied the pressure exerted by the president on the Israeli leader. It came with changes to make the proposal more palatable to him. Just days after the UK and others recognised a sovereign Palestinian state, neither Palestinian governance nor statehood were part of any deal.
Absolutely not. It is not written in the agreement either. But we said we would resist a Palestinian state with force.
For Hamas, agreement would mean the release of all hostages, living and dead, along with disarmament. They would no longer be in power and would effectively be agreeing to their own demise. Now, those to whom this matters most must wait. It's a suitable plan, at least to stop the bloodshed, this man says, and save what can still be saved. There are many issues, but at this stage the Palestinians have no other choice. And in Israel tonight, a warning from hostage families that Prime Minister Netanyahu may still seek to extend this war for his own benefit.
Mr. Trump, we saw yesterday that you see us and you relate to this. We admire your help, but we must warn you, be careful, because he may fool you again. Don't let him fool you.
Peace has given way to war before. Now, the focus is on war giving way to peace. It is a far harder transition.
And Emma is back in the studio in London. So Emma, how likely do you think it is that Hamas will agree to President Trump's proposal?
Well, I think there is monumental pressure now on Hamas, as well as the monumental pressure that President Trump put on Israel over the past few days. There is an awful lot to be said for this deal that Hamas could agree to. It's something that other Arab leaders and Muslim countries have really got behind and have sought to encourage them very much to adopt and engage. But I think there is a degree of frustration tonight that the deal that was shown to other leaders over the past few days is not the exact deal that has been offered to Hamas. And it seems that at some point between one document being shown to those who have a say in this or have some influence in this and it being presented to Hamas, there was a significant number of changes. And it seems that they may have come about as in part as concessions to Prime Minister Netanyahu. He was the last person to have the fulsome negotiations with President Trump at the White House. And I think there is great concern by certain countries, not least Egypt, Jordan and Qatar, that there is potentially quite a difference between what they were told and what the reality might be. In terms of Hamas, well, they have a big decision to make. They are pretty much voting for their own demise. They will have to hand over their hostages, dead and alive. They have been their great strength and their great power over the past 2 years, and they also will have to disarm. It is a very significant decision for them, but for no one is it more significant than for the people in Gaza and also the families of the hostages who are simply waiting and hoping that any decision will actually lead to peace.
Okay, Emma, fingers crossed. But thank you for now. The peace plan for Gaza has been a big talking point here at the conference in the past 24 hours, of course. There was a big cheer for the government's recognition of a Palestinian state during Sir Keir Starmer's speech. Well, I asked the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, earlier this evening about how significant she thinks the peace plan is.
There have been countries across the world involved over the last few months, and certainly at the UN General Assembly last week, really intense discussions to get to this point. And I think the sense of it being a moment that everybody thinks this simply cannot go on. It is devastating what is happening in Gaza. There has to be a way out of this, and there is no military solution that works. There really isn't.
What possible chance really is there anytime soon in making the Palestinian state that you've recognised a realisable fact?
So the very significant thing about this framework that the President has put forward, that President Trump has put forward, is it includes for the first time reference to Palestinian statehood. That is a really important step, and for the US to set out a plan that includes future statehood for Palestine, we think is very important.
And do you think Trump cares about that?
So I think he does. I think this is part of this process. And I think we've also only reached this point because we've had the recognition processes that the UK, France, Canada, Australia have been going through alongside, in parallel, in a very close working way, Arab states and the Arab League saying very clearly there can be no role for Hamas in the future of Gaza, in the future of Palestine.
Given the history of the Middle East, it's easy to be a bit depressed and cynical about this. Obviously, peace in Gaza is something everyone wants, but so often it hasn't worked out. But then we thought that about Northern Ireland for years and years, didn't we? And it did come to an end. Are you optimistic at this point, genuinely?
So one of the leaders I spoke to last week at the UN said he felt both optimistic and pessimistic, and it was possible to feel both. And to feel both worried in the way that you say, because this has been such an intractable problem, but also to feel a sense of optimism because of the level of energy that there has been to get to this point. And we have to together work towards a process that can get the hostages released, because the longer this military campaign goes on, there will be no chance of getting the hostages out, and to get the humanitarian aid desperately needed back in.
We're here at the Labour Party conference, obviously. Tonight you've got many in your party, including the Prime Minister, either effectively or actively accusing Nigel Farage of racism. You've had David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, bringing up the allegation that Nigel Farage flirted with the ideas of the Hitler Youth when he was a young man. I mean, you don't get more divisive than that, do you?
No, I think David has clarified that and said that Nigel Farage has denied that, and that's, so I think that's been clarified. But look, the broader point you're making...
Well, it's not an ideal thing to say, though, is it?
The broader point that you're making is an important one, which is about the future choice for the country, and whether we have a future that is based on decency and on optimism and renewing the country, because there are a lot of serious problems in our country, or whether instead you've got a political party that is just pursuing division and shouting from the sidelines.
Racist
That is actually, the Prime Minister's been very clear, that is not what he's doing. This is not about saying that about individuals, and we must not do that. What this is about is saying, look, the policies that they are pursuing actually are going to be deeply damaging. We wouldn't have an optimistic future in the way that they just shout from the sideline.
Foreign Secretary, thank you very much for sparing the time.